Hi guys, Deanne here from Canada Abroad, and thanks so much for tuning in. Today we are going to be talking about NOC codes. So a lot of people may have heard of these if they've been looking at all at the express entry system, because NOC codes are quite important for those applying through the Canadian Experience class as a federal skilled worker, federal skilled tradesperson, and then for some provincial nominee programs. If you've never heard of an NOC code, what it is it's a National Occupational Classification code. In Canada, depending on what occupation you have worked in or you are going to be working in, we assign it currently with a 4-digit number. So an example would be accountants. Their 4-digit number is 1111. Administrative assistants, it's 1241. So each occupation has a 4-digit number. And then based on this number, you can see what your skill level is. And currently for skill levels, we have 5. So there's O, A, B, C, and D. And these become very important because anybody who's looked at the Canadian Experience class, or as a federal skilled worker, you would know that work experience can only be considered for points if it's skilled. And with the current system, skilled is anything that is O, A, and B. If your work experience, whether foreign or Canadian, fell within C or D level, then you weren't eligible for the Canadian Experience class or as a federal skilled worker. Now, the major change that is going to be coming is they've completely overhauled the National Occupational Classification codes. So the NOC codes are going to be changing. And they are no longer going to be 4-digit codes. They are going to be 5-digit codes. So that's the first change that is quite substantial. And just so you know, every 10 years, they look at the existing National Occupational Classification codes and they overhaul the system. You know, they look at the economy, the market, they talk to everybody who uses these NOC codes, whether it's Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada. If it's StatsCan, these codes get used quite a bit, so not just for immigration purposes. So they talk with all of the different departments and they ask them, what do you think needs to be changed? So some of the major changes that were suggested for this complete overhaul were that the way that the skill level works needed to be changed because it wasn't taking into account certain things that, you know, with the current industry standards and the way that things work, it just wasn't an accurate representation. So it was placing a little bit too much of an emphasis on degrees or qualifications and not so much actually on someone's skill levels. Because for certain occupations and industries, you might not need a degree, or you might only need short courses, or you might need more on-the-job training. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not a skilled job. And what really comes to mind for me right now is, you know, it's not that they got downgraded, don't worry about that, but IT workers. I mean, a lot of them don't necessarily have a degree, or if they do, what's more important is that they are staying up with industry standards and these shorter courses and certifications. Whereas some systems don't place a lot of value on that unless it's a degree. So these short courses might not mean anything. Or pilots, as an example. Your pilot license might take quite a bit of flying time and practical time to obtain, but it's not viewed as a degree. So things like this is what's kind of gone into these changes. Now, the major thing that everyone needs to be aware of is it's no longer going to be 5 different skill levels. So O, A, B, C, D, it's going away. There is now going to be 6 different levels, and some of them have not changed. So if you're an O or an A, those are not really changing. The biggest change that we have seen is for anyone that's in a B level occupation. Basically, the B level is getting split into 2 categories. So AO is pretty much stayed the same, A is pretty much stayed the same, B is going to be split into 2. C, some of B is going down even further than the split and going further down to C, and D is pretty much remaining the same. So if you're currently working in an NOC code that is O or A, you're probably going to be fine. If you're in a B level, this is where most of the changes are going to be coming. And this is going to affect a lot of people because the B level is quite large and quite substantial. So we're going to go through how you can check what your code is going to be and what level you're going to be at. So skill levels, it's not going to be known as that anymore. It's going to be known as a TEER level. So this is TEER, and it stands for Training, Education, Experience, and Responsibilities. So they're going to be looking at all of that to decide which level everything is going to be. So with the new levels, the first one is management. So that's basically what O is right now. It's going to stay at a 0. The next level is what A used to be. Now it's going to be tier level 1. And this is, I'm just going to read from here so that I have a very clear understanding for you guys. Completion of a university degree, so a bachelor's, a master's, or a doctorate, or you have previous experience and expertise in subject matter knowledge from a related occupation found in tier 2. So that's one level then below. So that is what they're looking for the tier 1. Tier 2 is B level. Now, whatever is at tier 2, this is the equivalent of B level. But some of what we know as B level occupations have been dropped down to tier 3. So when we're looking at the tiers, it's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Basically, the new category that's been created is tier 3. This is what's going to be between what we know as a B and C level. So if you're at tier 3, this is the one that could be at the most at stake that might not be included for the Canadian Experience Class and Federal Skilled Workers going forward. Now, tier 2, like I said, it's still going to be the equivalent of B level, and this is what they classify it as. You've completed a post-secondary educational program of 2 or 3 years at a community college, institute of technology, or you've completed an apprenticeship training course of 2 to 5 years. Occupations with supervisory or significant safety responsibilities like a police officer or the fire department, or you have several years of experience in a related occupation in tier 3. So where you would have had to work in tier 3 for a certain amount of time before you got promoted up. Now, tier 3, like I said, this is the one that's going to be probably most in jeopardy when we're looking at the Canadian Experience Class and Federal Skilled Workers. This is the category where it's completion of a post-secondary education of less than 2 years, completion of apprenticeship of less than 2 years, or you have more than 6 months of on-job training with some secondary education, or you have several years of experience at tier 4. And that's basically the equivalent of you have experience in level C. So we're going to go through a few of the occupations that are being moved down slightly, okay? Because it's important for you to start looking at your code now to get an idea of where you sit. Because Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada is going to start implementing these new NOC codes in early spring of 2022. Now, the exact date is going to be posted on the IRCC website closer to the time, but according to the releases, it's going to be early spring. We have done an accessed information request to see if we can get anything further on that, but they might just say that they're not allowed to disclose it at this time. So if we do get any feedback on that, we will let you know. But for now, at least, we will provide you with the links where you can take your current occupation code, punch it in, and it's going to tell you what your new tier level is. And then from there, you can actually see if you're going to be tier 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. So you get an indication of if you're going to be sitting comfortably or there might be some concerns for you. Now, tier 4 and 5, these are basically the equivalents of C and D. There have not been many changes to that. Now, if we want to look at the distribution, so the number of occupations classified as O, A, B, C, D versus the new tier levels, this really shows us that the change has been again at the B level. So for management positions, there's been no change. Management is tier 0. No changes, nothing has been downgraded. If we look at the skill level A occupations, there was 89 occupations listed. Now there's only going to be 86 at tier 1. So 3 of them have been moved down 1 level, but they're still going to be within a skill level. For skill level B, there was 211 different occupations. Now for tier 2, which is sort of seen as the direct relationship of tier B, there's only 164 occupations. So that's where you can see that 47 occupations have been moved down a level from skill level B. So that's why I say that's where we've seen the most significant changes. So when we look at some of these occupations that are going to be moving down a skill level, a lot of it, and I just bring these ones up because a lot of the people I see going through the Canadian experience class, it's been a lot of administrative positions. And it's just because I think it's, if you're on a working holiday or you're a recent graduate, these are the easier positions to get. And they were skill level B. These positions, so anything admin, if it starts with a 1, 2, 1, 2, 4, 1 is one of the most popular ones I've seen, but 1, 2, and then etc. Those positions are now being downgraded to tier level 3. So this is the one that is the equivalent of just below B. So these are ones that could be potentially in jeopardy. So if you're working in one of those occupations, it's going to be very hard to tell right now if you're actually still going to qualify for the Canadian Experience Class or Federal Skilled Worker in early spring. Now, the other thing that is very important here is the government has said that they are going to be making changes to the way they select people from the express entry system because they have not been getting the best candidates. So they might be tying in those changes with the new tier system. So it could be that, again, certain levels are going to be skill levels. So they might only be taking certain tier levels, or they might have a short list they did previously. But the tier levels is definitely going to tie in with the way that they are changing the way they select people coming up. So these changes, because they're not implementing the new tier system for the NOC codes until early spring, this could potentially have some effect on what's been going on in the background that we haven't been seeing certain express entry draws. It might not be related, but this is definitely, all memos have said this is going to have a direct impact on immigration, refugees, and Citizenship Canada and the Canadian Experience Class and Federal Skilled Worker Program. And that's because we know that skill level is essential to those programs. So the new tier levels are also going to be essential to those programs. So again, currently they're not being used. You can go online and see what your NOC code is going to be in terms of the tier level. So again, the link is below that you can go around and punch in some codes and see what tier level you're going to be at. But they're not going to start implementing this with IRCC until early spring 2022. But that is coming up. And depending on, like I said, what tier levels are going to be skilled, this could have a direct impact on you. So you might want to start looking at this to see if your occupation is going down a level, if you could get a new position or get some kind of promotion that could be in your favor. So I know it's a lot of information to take in because NOC codes can be quite complicated as they are. So this is just a whole other bit of information. The codes are getting longer. They're putting in a new level, a whole level between B and C level, which is going to be a little bit of a challenge for some people. So like I said, take a look at the link below, put your code in, see where you're sitting. But like I said, if you're an O and A level right now, pretty comfortable, nothing is really going to change for you guys. The B level is going to be the most impacted by this change. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with the latest immigration news and updates. And if we do get any more information about how these tier levels are going to work for the Canadian Experience Class or the Federal Skilled Workers, we'll bring you that news as soon as we get it.